Can you talk a little bit about like what this is potentially doing to our kids? Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they're kind of like the guinea pigs for being full digital natives. We don't know what that's going to mean in 20, 30, 40 years. Is there even any research? I hope there's some that's being done on the effects so far, but like what do we actually know?
We know that children, and the younger they are, the smaller their bodies are, the more susceptible they are. At least 2 to 5x. If they're infants, very little toddlers, it could be 10, it could be 100 times more susceptible to the electromagnetic effects of this technology. So there's kind of two components. There's like the actual electromagnetic effects, which is the light, the blue light, the EMFs, radio frequencies. And then there's kind of the mental cognitive development piece as well. So the electromagnetic aspects are, simple, right? They have smaller body sizes. So the same intensity of wave will affect them at a deeper biological level. Because it's penetrating. Like if you hold your cell phone up to your head to take a call, versus a child or a 10-year-old, let's say, is doing that, it's going to penetrate way deeper into their tissue. And another thing is on the body size piece is they're ergonomically holding everything closer to their body. So they're getting an increased exposure of intensity from that. And electromagnetic waves, again, we're talking about light and then RF, EMFs, things like that. Every distance that you get closer, the intensity of the field squares in increase. So if you get 2 times closer to your body, which most kids are holding their phone probably 2 times closer than someone with a fully developed forearm, they're getting 4 times increase in the field intensity. And then they have a developing biology, and they also have higher water content, which water is really important because it acts as kind of an antenna. So it's constantly absorbing and receiving frequencies. So that's kind of the physical components. And then when you get into the mental aspects, right, the neurotransmitters, the effect on dopamine and things like that, what are children doing their entire childhood development? They're learning, they're curious, they're programmed to be curious. Every parent will understand that kids become exact copycats of their parents. Whatever you do, they want to do. And, you really notice this, and they become enamored with any little object in their environment because that's how we learn as humans. So with the screens and with the environment they're around, you are choosing their reality that they're learning in. You are choosing their training ground. So if you're giving them a screen, you're training them to be in this artificial world that's highly stimulating, highly stressful on the body, and really pulling them in as a portal. And of course, they're more addicted, they're more drawn in. Anyone who doesn't have a kid can go on YouTube and look up a video of iPad kids, or like taking an iPad away from a 2, 3, 4-year-old. They lose their mind. They're so drawn in, because that's what their biology is programmed to do. It's programmed to learn, to dive in, and to see what's going on so that the biology gets a feedback loop, and then it can fine tune its development to excel in that sort of environment. So that's what happens. And fast forward 10 years, smartphones have been around for a decent amount of time now. We're getting the early signs of this, right? We're getting mental health crises through the roof in teenagers, and, suicides are increasing. Overall major depressive disorder is up 4x across the board for everyone in age groups since the turn of the century. And that's only going to continue to proliferate. And like you said, it's kind of a giant science experiment because we really don't know. And the other thing, if you want to get really deep, is kind of at the cellular level, where this is kind of taking place. Mutations are happening at a genetic level, at a mitochondrial level, which actually is a byproduct of your environment, and then that can get passed down to the next generation. So if you have someone who's grown up in an artificial reality and then has kids when they're 25 or 30, they're already passing a baton, a torch, to their next generation that's been a bit fragmented. It's been kind of altered. And then that child is already set up for a lower kind of starting point, and then you're giving them an iPad when they're a year and a half, 2 years old, and they're always on screens. They're learning all day on screens. They're never outside anymore, which is really all kids should be doing, is getting outside and running around barefoot and playing and feeling. And, you're setting them up for failure. And that's why we're seeing chronic disease, mental health issues younger and younger. I mean, we're seeing Parkinson's in like your 40s and dementia. Like, this already was like an issue, a chronic disease, and now it's just happening earlier and earlier. And in my opinion, it's going to continue to happen. And unless there's an alternative, there's an intervention, and that's why we're so passionate about it. But now, I mean, fertility rates, people can't even have kids anymore. And the ones that maybe are just above that threshold, again, you're handing off the baton in maybe a not so ideal environment. So for us, one of the largest initiatives, one of the most important areas that we can be successful in is getting this in the hands of more moms, parents, children, because we want to create a future where they can learn but not be set up for failure at a biological level, because those early years of development are critical for the rest of your life in terms of a health context. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this. For a long time, I was like, shit, I'm just gonna like raise kids and they're not getting screens till they're 18. I mean, I don't know, like that was the decision. And there's a lot of parents, Montessori schools, Waldorf schools, that like, they don't even allow screens, and it doesn't have to be that way now. Like, we actually figured out something that is neutral to our biology and still can be like a productive tool for learning. And that's what's really exciting.